guests tonight are on their lunch break, or at least one of them is, so this is going to be a fast-moving conversation.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you at part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
All right, welcome in. You know, so I told you last night that we had millennials coming on, as if like it's ordering up a salad. I'll have a millennial. I'll have some millennials come in. One of my guests has been through this windmill of turmoil on this program with the old geezer here who likes to talk to millennials, and my other guest needs to get out because she's working for a living and we have to hurry up and produce the show, which just puts a lot of pressure on me because millennials make me nervous anyway. Welcome in. Friday night shows are recorded on Thursday, so if all heck is broken loose between Thursday and the time that you're seeing the program, we try to catch up on Monday. And unfortunately, last week we had that same kind of situation, right? When at the end of the week we had this awful shooting in Florida. And so here tonight what we're going to do is just kind of take some contemporary issues of the day and talk to my guests about them, and then tell you about some of the things that are happening in the millennial community that you should be aware of. And if you're not a millennial, you probably own one or have one in the house, and you can let them know what's going on. So unfortunately, it's no laughing matter when you look at headlines like this with the president and the meeting that he had with these families, actually 2 days ago now. And of course, he mumbled through half a solution.
If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly.
All right, so consider this to be just kind of a shoot the breeze with a couple of cool young people. You do what in this whole millennial context?
So I'm the executive director, and I've just been on the board, a founding board member for 3 years now, 4 years actually.
Executive director of
Millennial Rhode Island.
Millennial Rhode Island. And
yes.
Kyla has got to get back to work. What do you do?
I'm an attorney in Warwick, Rhode Island.
I thought attorneys were pretty loose with their billing hours.
Oh,
you know, it's just kind of like,
but we can't. It's the end of the month, though, Dan.
No,
it's the end of the month.
You got to bill.
Yeah.
Well, listen. I'll ask you a legal question,
sure.
and you can run me $250 an hour and grab 15 minutes on your way home, and you'll be all set. What kind of legal work do you do?
I practice at Daly & Norton in Warwick on Warwick Ave. We do civil stuff, so we do family law, personal injury, business litigation, and that's basically the gist of it. But yeah, I spend a lot of time in family court. It's been an experience.
It's actually, family court is a disaster.
That's one way of putting it. I would say that probably not everybody that enters the building is very happy. Probably
and they don't
the
leave
nature of
any
the game.
happier, generally.
Not usually, no. But I like it there.
Yeah.
It's new. I've only been an attorney for a year, so I'm still learning, and any day to learn something new is really good. It's like honestly all I can ask for as someone who's new. So.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're having a bad day and you want context, go to family court and sit for a while. I'm not kidding.
But you'll also learn a lot, too.
The struggles of life and broken families and all of that exists there. Yeah. Now, what is your field of expertise?
So, like every millennial, I'm doing a few things at once. My day job is I'm at the Department of Labor and Training as a grant advisor for the Real Jobs Rhode Island program. While you're on your lunch break, I'm using my personal time that I should be using for taking care of myself. You know, millennials love self-care, but I'm doing my volunteer work for Millennial Rhode Island on my free time.
Oh, man. You know, so are you involved in the organization?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Because every generation, I don't know what, have, people that are, fully engaged and aware of who they are, what they are. Does the whole groupies, meaning the whole generation, I got one, she's 23.
Yeah.
She doesn't walk around talking about being a millennial.
No, she should, though.
But you guys, do you walk around talking about being a millennial, or do you just live your lives without brand identity?
You don't know. It's after the Esquire, after my name, I come a millennial.
Well, I mean, it's also, Rhode Island is 300,000 Rhode Islanders are millennials. And I think as an organization, it's not about just branding ourselves. It's about realizing that this is a group of people, like a tangible number of individuals who each have their own identities, but also as a generation, we're also moving towards trends. And these trends and these things that we're into, whether it's how we like to shop, whether it's what we value in terms of career and interest, it's important that people are aware of these things as you're starting to think about how we develop our state, develop our country. Half of the workforce is currently millennials. If you don't know what millennials are into, if you don't know, hey, I have millennials on my team, you're not going to be successful at running a company, you're not going to be successful at selling a product without understanding what millennials are into.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't get to the Trump thing yet. We'll get to some issues, but since we're on this, God, I never thought I'd be old enough to be able to you know, do this whole generational look back thing, but I don't ever, listen, young people have always thought that they have a special kind of thinginess about them.
Right.
I mean, believe me, you know, when I was 27, I wasn't thinking about who I was. I mean, I was just doing.
What decade was this? I don't
want
to
I'm born in 61. I'm
61?
56. I'll be 57 in a couple of weeks.
Okay. So 70s.
That's the end of the show.
I was at
but the idea that the rest of us, meaning either your parents, grandparents, or maybe even people younger than you, I can't figure it out, need to understand that we have this special kind of generation to deal with is a mind blower to me. Mind blower. Where do you get off with this notion that, you know, you really better pay attention because we have a unique perspective on the world and we kind of own it now? And I mean,
I think where we get
as
off,
if you're a different species.
I think where we get off is looking at where we are as a country and saying, if we're a lot more thoughtful about generations to come and generations as they were determining what their priorities are, whether it was, hey, we're a generation that really values working from when you start until like your late ages and then you're going to retire. And if we thought more about how we can make retirement more sustainable, if we thought how we could prepare, but we didn't. We didn't think about.
We did. Who didn't? We
the
didn't.
Safety net. Well, the government. The government. I think that at the end of the day, it wasn't a top priority. It wasn't a conversation we were having.
So are you telling me that you guys do?
I'm telling you it's something that matters to us. Companies are now more thoughtful or moving towards being more socially aware because they're aware that social issues matter to millennials. If you look at things like the Me Too movement, if you look at how we're a lot more conscious of if you're going to be selling a product and working with kids in some, you know, disadvantaged country, being aware of labor practices in that country is going to matter to us buying that product.
What do you bring uniquely to your law practice? Are you a?
I'm an associate.
An associate
so, yep.
in a large law firm. You, you did name them, but whatever.
Yeah.
That may be or not a good thing for the law firm. I'm not sure which. Your call. But is your millennialism something unique to the law firm now? For them, do they have to deal with you in a particular kind of way because you have a different way of thinking about things? No,
not necessarily. I don't want to make a blanket statement and say that law on its own is an entirely separate animal in this discussion. It is and it isn't. I don't know that my millennial status really qualifies me for more special treatment, but the fact that I'm allowed to leave my office right now and be here with you on my lunch break is definitely something that I'm not sure many years ago people practicing would have an opportunity to do. So I'm thankful that I see someone who's allowing me to do that in my boss. That's something I would see important when I'm like searching for jobs as an employer. Another thing I think is really important to us as a group is mentorship. Yeah. I talk to a lot of people in my field and outside of my field at our events who are just really seeking someone to take them under their wing, that can show them the ropes, that can show them what to do and what not to do. You know, not only to be a productive member of society, but for personal and professional growth. So as someone who was just very recently seeking this job, I've only been in this position 4 months, that's something that I looked for.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, where I get off, as you put it earlier, I mean, it's more to me about acceptance and like just being accepted for the qualities I do bring to the table. So, you know, I'd like to think that I'm articulate and I'm intelligent, and I went through 3 years of law school, and, you know, I deserve to be in family court representing, you know, people and their problems. So I've been in plenty of professional situations where, you know, I've heard a similar kind of discussion. Well, you know, I've had to tailor the whole way I talk to millennials, and the example was because they don't know who Bill Clinton is.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like gotten to a point where for us it's
Who's
a little
Bill
bit
Clinton?
outrageous. You know, I don't know. Could you tell me?
You get all that? I could hang out with these people all day because it's always a learning experience, but I am going to get them on an issue or two when we come back. Stay with us.
Let's do that.
I sat hiding in a closet, fearing for my life, for my future, when all of us are that future. If we are going to protect our future, why are we not protecting our children?
These poor kids, our hearts bleed for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think millennial hearts are bleeding any differently. All right? And this generation, by the way, of 15 to 18-year-olds is in the what? It's in the iPhone generation, right? Or I don't know what. Is there a brand for these?
I don't think they've named it
No.
yet. Someone has said the founders. I think Time said that, but I don't think it's stuck.
Yet to be named. Let's hit a couple different issues. I played the president's audio before. We got distracted talking about your generation. What are you thinking about the current debate right now over school security and the like?
It's tough. It's tough. You know, I go to law school, and I'm, you know, I have this unique perspective. They make us take 2 semesters of constitutional law, and the whole theme of both semesters is there's a balance. There's a balance between the individual and the government. And obviously, we haven't struck that balance yet. Who has the answers? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, to sum it in one sentence, it's difficult, as I'm sure you know.
And I think, you know, to look at that question of who has the answers, I mean, I think as we're seeing with these students speaking out, clearly these students have a lot of thoughts, passion, and experience with this situation. And I think that as a Providence School Board member, it's also something that comes to mind a lot. We have to think about what the students want and what matters to kids. I mean, you think about arming teachers, okay, that is an issue that is going to reach into, there's already an issue with authority with students and teachers. And so putting this other piece in there is going to make that dynamic a lot more tense and a lot scarier in terms of the stories we could start hearing. So I think ultimately, and that's the thing that millennials, they're not the millennial generation, but we value being able to advocate and be civically engaged. We actually have a couple events that are around getting people engaged civically, working with Common Cause Rhode Island to start making sure that folks are educated on how to get involved in the process, how to organize a protest and talk to your legislators. And I think that's a big issue that we hope the next generation sees as a lot more easier and a lot more intuitive.
Well, that's interesting. We'll link on foxprovidence.com, right, Lexi, the events that you're talking about, and we'll mention them at the end of the show, that you're a school board member, appointed, not elected, in the city of Providence.
Yes, appointed, not elected.
Appointed, not elected, is great stuff. I mean, you've had to deal with some pretty heavy issues in the city. How long have you been on the board
So
now?
I've been on the board, yesterday was my first meeting. So
that was your first meeting?
My first meeting was yesterday.
You just got appointed?
So I just got appointed.
Oh,
yeah.
so you've missed all the joy of, you know, calling DCYF on time and principals that have been hauled into district court to defend themselves against a prosecution that's like a bazooka being taken to a knife fight, and all that kind of a thing. But I guess my point is that what this awful tragedy in Florida is showcasing, I think, is an energy from these young people that is filling a vacuum of lethargy amongst adult decision makers, maybe my generation of adults who are in Congress and in state legislators who are stuck here and here and can't find anything here. And all these kids are doing just 100 miles an hour in their grief, talking about all the stuff in here, right?
Yeah.
Do these conversations happen when you all get together?
Yeah, frequently.
Yeah.
And we haven't given up on you, Dan, or your generation, and we definitely understand that the generation coming up is going to need us. And there's going to come a time when it's going to be more comfortable for us to not listen to them and to maintain the status quo, and we have to be prepared to hear from folks like us 20 years from now. So as much as we're pushing so we can start this, raise the level of conversation, as much as we're pushing so people can't sit comfortably, we're preparing for our own discomfort later with the issues that are going to matter most to them. But I think it's a dialogue that needed to be opened up. And I think we're focusing on ourselves because we're just getting the door open. Once it's open, it's about...
It's not often that I get guests to come here and confuse me. Did you get what he just said?
I did.
You're preparing for later to be able to deal with the malaise of the age of the millennials later to the young people. Did you get that?
I did. No, I did. I did. Maybe it's because I know
Could you file a brief on that for me for tomorrow morning?
I could. What's the page limit, though?
Replay the video. It'll make sense. We're essentially time hopping right now.
I just make sure as you're nodding your head, you're not going, I don't know what he's talking about.
No, I 100% know, and I think he makes a salient point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I know it was smart. I just don't remember what it was.
No, so I think what you said is that these kids, I mean, I guess I don't know if I can even call them kids. They're like 10 years younger than me. I'm 26, so like I guess they're kids. What you said is that they're filling this void that the lethargy of the political right and the political left have created, right? So what he's saying is,
someday you might be lethargic, is what you're saying.
Correct, and that's what he's saying. And so we have to prepare now. See, you did get it.
Thank you, yay!
See, everyone needs a pat on the back.
And everyone needs to have a laugh, because unfortunately this thing in Florida is no laughing matter.
No.
And I can tell even by this conversation that you haven't thrown down any kind of solution because the thing is too confusing. Let's talk about, when we come back, we'll talk about another couple local issues, and we'll highlight some of the stuff that is going on, in this generation. Stay with us. All right, so there's a millennial. There's smack dab in the middle of controversy this week is State Senator Nick Kettle, who, I don't know, has got some interesting, allegedly some interesting, what should I say? He took nude pictures of his girlfriend, allegedly, and sent them to his friend, who then sent pictures of his wife, who sent them to him, and then whatever. Listen, if it's consenting, but it doesn't appear to be consenting, which is a problem. And then he's indicted on something that allegedly happened 7 years ago with a page and extortion for sex. Anyway, those things could end up blowing up into big to-dos, or they could end up being minimized to negotiated settlements. A lawyer would know that.
I would.
And the Senate decided to the president to actually exercise a constitutional provision to expel him. And so yesterday he resigned before that process began. What are you saying about this millennial event?
Well, just putting my lawyer hat on, as I've been doing.
Yes.
So grand jury indictment, very low burden of proof, very low threshold for the prosecutor to overcome. Basically just saying at the end, if the grand jury says, yep, there's enough probable cause to take this to trial, that's where it's going to head. So I like that you said allegedly, because it's another one of these balances, like we're talking about.
It's a legal necessity for me to say allegedly. It's not just my discretion.
Well, I'm glad that you also know that then. That's good. You must have a very smart attorney behind you somewhere.
Or a lot of years of experience.
Maybe
being an old fart doing this for a long time.
No, but so I read the article in the Providence Journal about, Senate President Ruggiero calling for the expulsion, which I think would have been like the second one in Rhode Island history? First in Rhode Island history, so I stand corrected. To an extent, I think Steve Brown from the ACLU mentioned something that was quoted in the article where he felt really strongly about due process. And, I definitely, obviously, 100% see that point. On the other hand, I see the Senate President's point. Even if it's alleged behavior like that won't be tolerated going forward. And I think that sends a powerful message, and it opens the door for a discussion that really needs to be had in this state, and it's how do we address, sexual violence, sexual assault, things like revenge porn, and circulating what inevitably happens. I mean, as much as you tell people not to do things, they do things.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think time and time has just come as like, this is the way things are, and I think particularly we as men have to go ahead and step up and take onus on a lot of these things that we've taken as norms and start to challenge and ask ourselves, are we policing each other as much as we should be? I think the idea of consent and like what's okay and not okay with women is something that we haven't historically been comfortable talking about, that we need to. Looking at where we are as a society, it's a big, big issue.
So the men thing is pretty consistent through the generations.
Oh, yeah. This men problem, we got to figure out how to handle that.
Good. All right, so there you go. That's a cross-generational situation.
Yes,
that's a gender situation. Well, it's interesting. I would hope that, though, that I don't think it's a generational consideration to actually think deep about this. When we have had people go down for financial crimes, the likes of which ought to make us gasp, and no one's ever asked for a constitutional provision to let anybody go, we've let them go on their own time. Demanding a resignation and using the full force of the Constitution to expel somebody is a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different ballgame. So I don't care what generation
That's an
you
interesting
are.
precedent for sure, if that were to actually have happened.
Well, I'm not a big slippery slope arguer, but this is the beginning of that.
I agree.
You know, what next is offensive in terms of potential or alleged behavior on the part of an elected official, and then causes the body to say, you know what, you've got BO, you need to go. You know, that's a big problem, no doubt. Talk to me about your stuff. What do you got coming up?
Well, that's actually this discussion about sexual, assault and education is actually parlays into an event we're having tonight at the Black Sheep in Providence.
Tonight to Friday?
Tonight, Thursday, I'm sorry.
So yesterday.
So how was that?
It was great.
So it was a great
It was
success.
Glad you had a good
educational.
time.
We partnered with the Center for Sexual Pleasure and Health in Pawtucket, and they're an organization that's focused on looking at healthy relationships.
I haven't had that director on here in a long time.
Yeah, you should.
She's still in business.
She
Yeah,
is,
she's phenomenal.
and she's a great resource.
And it's an important issue, and it's something that as we look at what's happening in society, toxic masculinity, the men problem, just like understanding consent, they're an organization that's dedicated to like talking about that, and so they're gonna do a trivia tonight, but they're also doing a workshop with us, our Adulting 101 series. So these are series where we're teaching millennials and whoever else wants to come how to be a proper adult. Some of that manifests itself in events that are home ownership and financial well-being. Some of that is healthy relationships, some of that how to write a cover letter. And so we have a series of workshops that are around teaching us how to do that. We also have our partnership with Coastway Community Bank, a financial literacy series. We're just talking about millennials, how to use this limited purchasing power that we have. The generations before us have had 20% more ability to spend at our age, and we're figuring out how do we spend the dollars that we do have with them. We also have millennial meetups. So we're working with local businesses that can host us for one night. We'll come, we promise we won't crash the place, and we'll hang out, we'll invite other millennials to socialize and show that here in Rhode Island there's interesting places. We've been to Riff Raff Bookstore and Bar. We're planning on working with Troop PVD, Renaissance Hotel, having events that support the local business culture here in Rhode Island. And that's a big part of where we want to go as an organization. Make it clear that we're here to keep businesses in Rhode Island booming, bring millennials and the little dollars we have to your establishment to eat, drink, enjoy ourselves.
When are you running for governor?
Yeah.
I got to go back to school first, so we'll talk about that when I come back.
And you'll be
from
the
school.
Attorney General.
I would love to. That would be great.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
Well, I would love to be the President of the United States because, why settle for just something statewide? Not that that's settling, but,
I
just
salute you.
get up there.
Is that a semi-formal announcement?
Well, in another, 9 years I'll be able to run, so 35.
Is that mandatory,
this
by
in
the
the-
way?
yeah, it's in the
we can't change-
Constitution.
Oh,
Yeah.
that whole thing.
That old thing,
When you go back after your lunch break, you can talk to the boss about leave for your presidential run.
I think I might have to.
It was a pleasure to meet you, and good to see you again.
Always a
Likewise.
All that info is on foxprovidence.com. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. So I'm told that coming up on the Monday program, we will once again look at Black History Month. These are important conversations, and Lexi just proudly told me that we're the only program in the state that's spending so much time on Black History Month, correct? I think these conversations about the history of some of our challenges in Black and white America are really, really important. So we'll see you on Monday for that. Have yourself a great weekend. Don't forget to tune in weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Good night.